everyone, I'm Laura.
And I'm Jill.
And we are the hosts of Crime Divers podcast. We are Scottish sisters who tell each other true crime cases that other hasn't heard of.
New episodes are released every Tuesday and you can find us on your favourite podcast platform.
So what are you waiting for? Grab your wetsuit and join us as we dive into the world of true crime.
But remember, watch out for those sharks!
Hello everyone, this is Megan.
And this is Alana.
And welcome to Tea Time Crimes.
Halloween edition. It's another spooky town.
There she is.
I'm actually listening to my black cat scream in the other room, so it's very fitting.
Awesome. Well, welcome back. We're on our third spooky edition. Just one more to go. You can do it, Alana.
Woo!
Are you liking the spooky editions better than the regulars?
No, but I know everybody else is. Because they're scarier.
Anyway, how you doing?
I have a nugget for our viewer listeners. So last time, I'm sure everybody who's with me was like, where did leap year come from? And
Lord,
since I'm your only source of truth and you couldn't find this out any other way, I know you've been waiting a whole week. It's Julius Caesar.
What is Julius Caesar?
He's the reason for a leap year. So what was happening, it's like...
Hold on. If you missed last week's episode, I said February 2 times in an hour, and Alana stopped the segment to say, how did leap year get invented? And then now we're here. So here's the answer. Go ahead.
Yeah. So a year is like roughly 365 days, but it's a little bit more than that. It's like 0.24 more than that. So he was noticing that things would slowly start to shift out of season order if you left it too long like that. So he shortened one day for a month I forgot that part.
Leap year is every 4 years.
Yep. That's the number. So
go.
That's why. So we wouldn't be having Christmas in February or something.
I don't think the dates would change. I think maybe just Christmas would like be in the summer.
No, that's what I mean. Like it would be out of place. Like Halloween would feel like winter or springtime. Things wouldn't be right. So
Gotcha.
He's like, okay, I'll adjust this and it'll fix everything. And I guess he was kind of right, but it's still weird.
All right.
Also, that was a long time ago.
I mean, I guess if it works,
Yeah, so there's your wisdom drop of the day.
I can feel the relief. People have been really just nibbling on that for a whole week.
Yeah,
wondering.
And luckily they didn't die. That's all you need.
Yeah, luckily. And okay, in real announcements, though, you and I had a Tea Time Crimes milestone, didn't we?
Yeah, we did.
So Alana and I, it actually should air today, which will be October 18th, we think. We did an interview with another podcast called The Reverend and the Reprobate, which is the Alana and Megan male version. It's run by an actual Reverend, Lucas, and his friend Danley.
Are you a Reverend?
No, I'm not a Reverend. I just meant in their like format and how they interact.
Yes, definitely.
But theirs is an interview format podcast. Take a listen. They reached out to us and asked us to be on the show, said they were fans. And so immediately Alana and I were like, this is a mistake, right? Like,
yeah, right. Because they had legit people on there, like comedians and like Marvel people. And we're like, why do they want to talk to us?
Yeah, we looked at their past episodes and they actually interviewed Leanne Morgan, who's a comedian who I love. And I was like, did they like is it a typo in the email? Like, is there another TTC out there?
Right.
And then, but they kept emailing us, and then they emailed us and asked Alana for her address so that they could have her do a review on the show. So Alana sends me a snapshot of this email with a text that just says,
Panic.
"This is how I die." So then we start thinking, okay, well, if it's not a mistake, then somebody has created an email that's not associated with this podcast, and this is some sort of like catfishing Marianne Cotton vibe, and we're just the victims.
What's her
now.
name in San Fran?
What?
What's her name in San Fran who mailed the chocolate?
Oh, Cordelia Botkins. Yeah, we're getting Botkined over here.
Yeah.
But Alana's like, let's do it. I'm the nibble and die kind of person. Well, I'll just sip and see if I die. She's all in. So we go, like, virtually. We attended. It was actually option 3, which we did not consider, which was that they actually were fans. And he's a Reverend, so he can't lie.
Yeah.
He and his wife, Kirsten, hi Kirsten, had listened to all of the episodes.
Yeah, their assistant Heather.
Yes, Heather. Hi, Heather.
She found it, and then they binged it, and he's like, I've been binging it, but now I don't have another week of it.
Yeah, and he knew all of Alana's little quirks, and
it was
Lucas and Danley were great interviewers, and
I was just basically an idiot for an hour straight, so it'll be entertaining for all those viewers. They're actually viewers. It's viewers is on camera.
Yeah, they're on camera, so Alana was just in her element. I mean, really, we clearly need to get a video camera for her. So that should air at the same date. We haven't even heard it, right? Because it's coming out today.
Oh my God.
They have an episode that just came out, and it is about Lucas and his wife gave birth to their first son, and he was born prematurely. So they've spent the last several weeks in the NICU, and it's not their typical episode because typically it's an interview style, but it's just Lucas and Danley talking about it, and encourage anybody to listen to it. They're really honest and upfront, and I think that there needs to be more attention to these types of things. Like, we are, as a society, are so hush-hush about miscarriages or postpartum issues or postpartum depression or babies that are born and put into NICU. As a parent, you feel like it's your fault or there's something you could have done, and there's lots of guilt and shame around these kind of issues. And the more people talk about it and the more people share their stories, it can be really a lifeline for somebody going through this. So take a listen to that episode. If you happen to gaze by ours, that's cool too.
The Reverend and the Reprobate. And I'm always scared of that word, but I think I've got it down.
But she's getting so good. The Reverend and the Reprobate. Yes.
There's a lot of vowels. That could go either way.
Alana was, her dazzling self. So take a listen. And I don't want to spoil the surprise, but they had her do one of her ratings on the show.
They sure did. Thanks, guys.
Yeah, so maybe it was an accident, but they're stuck with us now. We showed up.
And
Alana's still kicking.
Well, you could delete it and say it never happened.
Yeah, so we had a great time, and it's a great podcast. Take a listen.
Yeah, they're cool guys.
Yeah. All right. So, T, did you get a Halloween tea? Did you get it together? What do you got?
Oh, yeah. So, speaking of Nymeria, I have a very...
That's her black cat.
Halloween... Oh, yeah. I have a very Halloween-themed tea today for a Halloween episode. It's black cat tea. I'll show you.
Oh, yeah. Show us.
Just for your benefit.
Do you guys see it?
For your benefit only.
It's okay. It is a black square that says black cat tea. That I don't want you guys to miss out on these amazing discoveries here.
They're going to see it.
Yeah, you'll see it on Instagram.
I love the theme of it. Love black cats. I love them so much. But I'm a little nervous about the blend and Leonarda.
What? Is it made of soap? I don't understand.
No, but now every time I think of Etsy, I think of Leonarda.
So you think there could be actual black cats in there?
No, not black cats, just humans. Okay, but it's fine. Anyways, so
probably fine.
Black cat tea, a bewitching blend of warm cinnamon, sweet berries, and smooth, rich chocolate. It's wickedly delicious.
Ooh, I love that description. Props to whoever wrote that. Are you worried about the berries or the chocolate?
The chocolate. I really, really don't like chocolate in tea, but I didn't read what was in it until I had selected it, and once it's selected, it's too late.
Yeah, well, hopefully it's light. Also, cherry is a stone fruit. We also learned that.
Yes, thanks to one of our lovely listeners, stone fruit, cherry. But you know what I was thinking? What's an avocado?
This is not my realm. This is your segment of the podcast.
All right,
this is all you.
anybody, is avocado stone fruit? I like to say it's a vegetable, but you know how all these vegetables are fruits and it's annoying, but it has that big pit in it. So maybe that's a stone. I was chopping one up for my salad this week and I was like, is that a stone fruit? Okay, there's other ingredients in here that's not in the description, like jasmine, sunflower, cornflower.
You love jasmine.
I do. Mallow petals, but chocolate chips. Fuck. Oops. Oopsies.
She's really distressed by this.
Okay.
Oh, how's that sniff?
Off the bat, I smell the black tea, of course, and the berries and a hint of chocolate. It's like a little kiss.
A Hershey's kiss?
It smells good. Like I would want, I'm getting a vision. It's like a slice of dark chocolate mousse pie with a layer of raspberry and a dollop of whipped cream on top. That's what this smells like.
That sounds amazing.
Right? Remember your mousse?
Excuse me?
The mousse that you would make from avocados. Oh my God, it's full circle.
Oh, yeah.
That was good.
It's full circle. That was very good.
Yeah. Special listener earmuff. We have a listener who hates when I sip.
She says she hates the sound of you sipping.
Yeah, but she just hates chewing and like mastication sounds in general.
Have you thrown a peach in front of her?
That's a great point. She would probably die.
Yeah.
I don't hate it. It's balanced well.
Shock.
It's balanced well. It's not too heavy on the chocolate. The black tea is so rich. It's like a big cushion, like a big beanbag that the berry and chocolate can kind of seep into, and it absorbs it and balances it out.
What a visual.
I want to try it with milk because I think it'll be good, but I'm worried about ruining it. Do you have
No,
advice?
try it with milk.
Okay.
Try it with milk. Also, who made it on Etsy? Now that you like it, I feel comfortable that we can actually give them a shout out. Sunshine
Cottage. Great work.
Oh, how cute.
They're actually based in Vermont, but I got it on Etsy.
Yeah, what part of Vermont?
Saxton's River.
Saxton's River. I used to live in Saxton's River.
Really?
For a minute. Yeah.
Cool. Where is that in relation to Burlington? Because that's all I know.
I mean, you can do the whole state in 3 hours. But.
Right. I grew up in California, and so I went to school in New York.
For college, not boarding school.
Oh, yeah. Can you imagine me going to boarding school?
I can't. I liked it for a second.
I kind of want to write a short story about that. Freshman year, we're like, oh, there's a whitewater rafting trip in Pennsylvania. And I'm like, oh, like, are we going to sleep over somewhere? Like, how long is it going to take to get there? But it takes like 4 hours to drive through states. And it's like in California, it doesn't work like that.
Yeah.
I also, one of our listeners will love this, this is my first winter, right? So I'm heading to class, open-toed shoes, and my roommate catches me in the stairwell. She says, nope. She takes off her Uggs. She just got back from class, took my shoes, and like made me wear them. Good call.
That's a friend. Just looks at you.
Yeah, she's a good one.
Nope.
She's a good one. She steered me in many directions. Okay.
I feel like we have that relationship where we can just look at each other and say, nope.
Nope. All right. Still smells good.
But all right. Oh, yeah. God, we're still doing tea. Good Lord. Go.
Just as good.
Yeah. All right. Sunshine Cottage.
Yeah. Sunshine Cottage. Really good job. I was super nervous about this blend.
All right. What's your rating?
Yeah. This is a thumbs up. I think it would go in the surprising thumbs up category. Because
all right.
Once I read it, I was like, I'm not going to like this. But just like with ghosts, always have an open mind.
That's right.
Try everything once.
You're a surprising thumbs up.
Yep.
Sunshine Cottage, which is all you can hope for in this world. All right. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
You ready to rock?
Ready to rock.
Today's October case is the trick or treat murder.
Oh, no.
I mean, it's still a murder, but I don't think it's what you're thinking.
Okay.
So this happened Halloween night, 1957 in Los Angeles County, Sun Valley to be exact.
Hey, we live there.
I know. Sun Valley is part of the valley. It's just north of Burbank. So explain to people who might not have grown up in LA what the valley is.
You don't go there.
What?
Oh, well, growing up on the west side, anything east of the 405 is like way too far. But anyways, as an adult living in LA, the Valley's great. LA is like proper from Santa Monica to downtown LA, and that's not the whole borders. But then you go north, and just beyond the mountains, like Griffith Park, right beyond the observatory, are things like Burbank, North Hollywood. You just take the 101 up north. And it's a great part of town, honestly.
Yeah, it's just a big section of little cities that people refer to as the Valley. If you're living in the Valley, you don't go to Santa Monica. Like,
right.
It's just because it takes forever. Because of the traffic, it takes just 1.5 million years to go 5 miles. So you really just stay within like a 2-mile radius of where you live.
Correct.
Essentially. But at the time, so Sun Valley is a little different than it is today, right? So at the time, LA County had a population of just over 4 million.
This is fascinating.
And today, it's over 10 million.
Yeah, it is.
So considerably smaller, but still a large city. And Sun Valley was going through, most of the valley was going through a really big building boom. And that was largely in part to the fact that this is during a time period when the baby boomer generation is happening.
They're booming.
They're literally booming, and they need places to live. So a lot of people are moving out to the suburbs, and that's what the Valley is constructing. It's a lot of residential areas. It's a lot of suburban.
You said this is north of Burbank.
Just north of Burbank.
Okay.
It's like right around the Burbank airport.
Okay. Oh, cool. John Wayne. Wait.
What have I done?
What is that airport called? I know it.
It's called Bob Hope.
Yes.
How did I know that and you didn't? It just came out. It just popped into my brain.
Yeah, that was amazing.
So a lot of the landscape is changing. It was more agricultural.
Sure.
And now houses are popping up all over the place.
That's so cool.
Yeah. So 1957, Elvis, Sam Cooke, they're hitting the airwaves.
Oh.
That's what people are listening to. You've got the Ed Sullivan Show and I Love Lucy coming in through the TV. The Dodgers moved to LA that year.
Los Dodgers.
Eisenhower is president.
Whoa.
And desegregation is starting to happen. So in September of that same year, the Little Rock Nine actually took their first steps into Little Rock Central High School. So that paints you a picture of the time period.
Okay.
Hopefully that answered all your questions. I'm sure there's some more I haven't.
That was a great setup. Honestly, I mean, we got some urban planning history. I mean, like it really knocked everything out of the park. Even knew Bob Hope. So you're off to a great start.
I can't wait to see what questions you have. So Peter Fabiano and his wife, Betty, lived in Sun Valley in a place called Community Street. That's actually the name of it. And it was a brand new 4-bedroom house that had been built in 1955.
Okay.
So they're part of this new building boom.
Yep.
They've moved there. And the couple had only been married for a few years. This was Betty's second marriage. She actually had 2 children from a previous marriage. She had a 15-year-old daughter named Judy, and she had a 17-year-old son, Richard. But Richard had just entered the Navy, so he's not in the house, right? It's just Peter, Judy, and Betty.
Got it.
Now, Peter and Betty had met in New York. Betty is this beautiful redhead who is newly single. There's not a lot of information on her. I don't know what her likes and dislikes are, but she and Peter started dating in the 40s in New York, and they got married in 1955 in New York, and then they moved to Los Angeles in 1956.
That's a big move. They drove, I'm assuming. That's a big road trip. I wonder what, like, the in-between of America was like in that point.
Now, Peter was born in Michigan, but he'd actually served in World War II as a Marine. And when he got out of the Marines, he became a truck driver, and he was a truck driver when he met Betty. But after they got married and they moved to Los Angeles, he opened up a hair salon, 2 actually, in Sun Valley, and him and Betty ran them together, which is I find that so interesting. I wish there was more information on
a hair salon.
I know, doesn't it seem like such a pivot? I mean, today a hairdresser it's 90% women.
Right. And a barber is men.
He not only owned it, but he also did Betty's hair. So he must have also known how to do hair.
Maybe that was true passion.
I don't know. And that's one of those weird things where maybe men were more often hairstylists later on,
right.
And it has switched. I don't know. I don't get the stats for 1957. But they had 2 successful hair salons that they ran together.
Wow.
So the couple has a lot going on, right? They've got this nice new house. They're in this nice neighborhood. They're in LA. They've got these 2 businesses. It's happening. So on this particular Halloween night,
I'm nervous.
by the way, Frankenstein is the most popular costume of 1957, or Frankenstein's monster, excuse me.
How about sexy Frankenstein?
No, it was like little kid. Like The Curse of Frankenstein had just been released, the movie.
Oh.
So Frankenstein's monster was
fun.
like the most popular
Yes,
costume.
That's so fun.
So Betty and Peter and I'm assuming Judy had spent the whole night greeting all these little Frankensteins, and I don't know who else there was. Probably some Lucille Balls and
Yep.
cowboys.
Betty would be a good Lucille Ball.
Yeah, I know, she's a redhead. They spend their evening handing out candy in their nice new neighborhood.
What candies do you think they're handing out? Babe Ruth's? Hershey bars?
100 Grands.
Still good today?
Hershey's.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Were Skittles invented?
The family goes, when were Skittles invented? Dang it, I should have looked into the candy of 1957. I've failed you again. Anyway, so they finish handing out candy. The family goes to bed around, like all the lights are off before 11 o'clock.
I don't like when you're going into details because then something is going to happen.
Yes, something's about to happen. So between 11 and 11:30, the family's asleep or at least in bed, and there is a knock at the door.
Nope. It's Halloween night. Get out.
Peter is like, what the heck? He gets up and he actually grabs the rest of the candy and he heads towards the door.
Oh, that's nice.
I know. He opens the door and Betty hears him say something along the lines of, it's a little late for this sort of thing, isn't it?
So you'd think trick-or-treaters or prostitutes.
And she hears somebody respond, no. Now, what Peter is looking at is a single trick-or-treater who's wearing Levi jeans, red gloves, a khaki jacket, and a domino mask. Do you know what that is?
No.
Yeah, I had to look it up. It's just one of those that it just goes over the eyes, the black mask that just goes over the eyes and like attaches the string
like
around your
Lone
head.
Ranger.
Like a bandit mask, yes.
Mm-hmm.
And so Betty hears this person say no, and then a shot rings out.
No.
Peter falls right there in the front of the house. The person flees. So now Judy's awake as well. Betty had already been awoken by the knock. They run down to Peter. And Betty calls the police, and Judy actually runs next door because their neighbor is a police officer.
Oh.
And they're trying to get Peter immediate medical attention. The ambulance arrive. Peter has been shot in the chest with a single bullet, and the blood loss is too great. On the way to the hospital, sadly, he passes away.
But that's not fair.
Now, I told you Richard, Betty's son, was out of the home. He was actually on his way back to the Navy base. He was on the way. He was in transition, and somebody intercepts him and brings him back so that he can be with his mom and his sister. Immediately, the police start looking into this. The Los Angeles Times headline reads, Sun Valley man rises from bed to meet death.
Wow, that's a really dramatic headline.
It's very dramatic. They have very little to go on. So the police start looking.
Who are his enemies?
So they obviously start with the crime scene, but the shell casing they can't find it. Either the person took it or it's missing. It's not there. And there are no witnesses. There's one teenage boy who said he saw a car speed away at that time, but he can give, he doesn't know what color it was. He doesn't know what make. He doesn't know what model. The best that tells him is that possibly the murderer didn't ride away on a bike. Like that's all. It really gives them no information to go on. They're like, all right, we're not looking for somebody on foot or on a bicycle, but that's all they know. And this plays to the cops like a gang hit. So they start looking into Peter, which is common. You always want to know the victim. They start looking into Peter and they find that in 1948, Peter was actually convicted of bookmaking. Do you know what that is?
Like betting stuff.
Yeah, gambling. He was probably a bookie. I was almost like 90% confident you were going to say, what do you mean he was a book publisher? And like you were going to get mad about it. But
no, yes, I know because the Queen of New York.
Oh, you talk about St. Clair?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Madam Queen.
Throwback to Madam Queen. Yeah, so he was sentenced to 180 days. And it seemed a pretty trivial detail that it had happened in a different state, right? He's in New York at that time. It happened in 1948, and there's really been nothing since. So they can find no organized crime connection. So they kind of cross that off the list. They start looking into Peter's life, the people in Peter's life. So they talk to Betty, they talk to employees, they talk to former employees, right? And one name comes up. and that is Joan Rabel. Now, Joan used to work for Peter and Betty in the beauty shop.
Oh.
She's now a former employee, though. She no longer works for them. And Betty says if there's anybody who doesn't like Peter, it's Joan.
Uh-oh.
This is interesting to the police, right? And they bring her in for a statement. Joan says, I had nothing to do with it. And, I was home. Nothing. I got nothing. They look into Joan. There's very few details on Joan today. So some sources say that she was born in Philadelphia. Some say she was born in Lithuania and immigrated later on. No details of her upbringing. The only detail that seems to be consistent is that Joan was really into creative pursuits. So she was a writer, a photographer. She traveled to Hawaii a lot. I think she went to the University of Hawaii for taking writing classes.
Oh.
And that she was divorced and around 40 years of age when she started working for the Fabianos. And she became instant friends with them and was at their house all the time. She was really close with Betty. Like, she was kind of brought into the Fabiano household pretty quickly. She does have a prior record. She has some things on her arrest record for burglary and for liquor violations. So I don't know what that means. There's no details. That could be something really scary or something like she had an open container. I don't know.
Right.
Or she shoplifted. Like, I'm not sure. By the late 50s, right, she's working at the Fabianos. Recently had been fired, and her relationship with Betty was no longer, which we will get into. The police got their initial statement from Joan, but then they start checking it out, obviously. They're not just going to be like, oh, you're home alone. Cool. Okay, bye. They have to look into it. And there are lots of inconsistencies in Joan's statements.
Oh, boy.
She said she, didn't go anywhere. But then one of her friends, Margaret Barrett, says, well, I lent Joan my car that night. And then Joan says, oh, I went here to here. And the police totaled up, that's about 4 miles. And Margaret says her car had 37 miles on it when she checked the odometer.
You a lying, girl.
She is lying.
We have odometers these days.
Who checks the miles before they rent out a car or loan a car? Do you do that?
No.
I know. Come on, Margaret. Relax.
Come on, Marge.
Yeah, come on. Anyway, and there's no actual witnesses to the murder other than, I told you, the teenager saw a car move. But they go and canvass the Fabiano neighborhood, and there are several people who say that they saw Margaret's car, or at least the make and the model of Margaret's car, prior to the shooting. So early on in the evening.
Okay.
So that's suspicious. And like I told you, Betty explained that her and Joan no longer were friends. Now, a little more into the detail of this. It's very confusing, but Joan and Betty were very close friends. And Peter and Betty were having some marital issues.
Oh, God.
To the point where Betty needed a break.
Uh-oh.
And she moved out of the house. And she stayed with Joan.
Oh, yeah.
Now, there are lots of rumors. There's nothing, I don't know one way or the other.
Joan slept with Peter.
No, there are lots of rumors that Joan and Betty were an item.
Oh.
I don't know if that's true.
Didn't see that coming.
What happened is Peter and Betty reconciled, and Peter said, you can never talk to Joan again. So to me, it seems extreme that he would say that if they were truly just friends, right?
Interesting.
And so Betty had to cut Joan out completely in order to reconcile with Peter.
Oh, and maybe Joan's so in love with Betty that she killed Peter so that they could be together.
Well, Betty was said to have told Joan, according to Joan, not Betty, Joan said that Betty often told her how mean Peter was, and that he was abusive. So that's what Joan is saying. So Joan is either a super protective friend who has created this story that Peter is abusive. Maybe he is. Or Joan is in love with Betty, and maybe she's just in love with Betty and Betty never felt that way about her, or maybe they had a relationship. There's lots of possibilities here. Either way, Joan's invested.
Yeah.
And Betty seems to be the object of that energy. So Joan continues to say she's innocent. She's still arraigned, but she posts bail and she's out. Shortly after that, the police receive an anonymous tip that leads them to the murder weapon. So they went to this department store. I guess in those days at a department store, you could rent a locker, like a little storage locker.
Like an Amazon locker?
I guess, something like that. And the store was Bullock's. which is a lot of them have been converted into Macy's. So like I'm picturing like the Macy's down in the Grove kind of area. But they go there, and in the locker there is a gun with one bullet in it. And it is a .38 caliber Smith & Wesson that they immediately take into evidence, and they match it to the murder of Peter through ballistics.
Uh-oh.
So they have the murder weapon now. How did they get the murder weapon? Like, where did it come from? They trace it to a woman named Goldine Pizer, who on September 21st bought a gun in Pasadena. So who the heck is Goldine? She is a 42-year-old medical secretary who works at the Children's Hospital and lives in Hollywood, California. There is no obvious connection between Goldine and the Fabianos. Now, police find Goldine pretty easily, and they bring her in. I don't even know if she made it to the station before she just cracks. She's a very nervous person.
Okay.
I think as soon as she like made eye contact with the officer, she's like, yep, thank God you're here. I can't take this anymore. I did it. This is terrible. Take me away. She could not handle it.
That's so funny.
So she just spills the whole story instantly. I mean, I don't even think they have to ask her. I think they're just like, hey.
I did it.
Yeah, she was not. It was like the telltale heart for her.
That's
was
hilarious.
Just waiting. She couldn't handle. So she starts telling the story of what happened. She said, according to her, she did not know Peter or Betty. All she knew in this story was Joan. In fact, her and Joan had been friends for several years.
Wink.
And together, they had been planning Peter's murder for months.
Why does Goldine care about this?
Yeah, well, we'll get into it. But I also think there's nobody ever, it's 1950, so they never say it. But I think Goldine and Joan were at least in a relationship. Couple. That's the only thing that makes sense.
Okay.
Yeah, do you have a question?
It's really irrelevant, so I will wait to a better place.
Oh, perfect. No, ask it now. What is it?
So, I just thinking, right? I was thinking when he got arrested for bookkeeping. What was it?
Bookmaking.
Good bookmaking.
Were you keeping accountant records in your storage file?
And right, that was 1948. The war had just been over. But then I was thinking, and he's an Italian American, right?
I have no idea.
With a last name like that, you know?
I'm assuming.
There was a huge immigration of Italians into the U.S., and the Italians were on the other side of World War II. How do you think the Italian Americans felt going against Italy in the big war?
Peter was born in Michigan.
No. I'm not saying that. I know, but like, you're not that far removed early on in our history.
I feel like if you're born into that country, then you're probably feeling all right about it.
Really? You're not thinking about your grandma in the hills of Italy?
I don't think a lot of grandmas fought in World War II.
No, I'm just saying the idea of it. You're like going from your new place, attacking the homeland. I'm just saying there might have been some conflicted hearts, and it might have been tough for some people, and I hope they journaled about it.
Okay.
Please continue.
If you have any of those journals available, please send them to Alana.
I bet they exist. I'm going to look this up.
I mean, you hear about that in the Civil War too, brothers fighting against each other.
Right.
I mean, war is not a feel-good time.
It's not. That's correct.
Okay, let's bring it back. 1957.
Bring it back. Yep.
Hollywood.
So
Goldine, is that how I said her name? Did I just change how I said her name? Goldine?
Mm-hmm.
Is that how I was saying it before?
That's how you were saying it before.
Goldie said that her and Goldie said that her and Joan had been friends for several years, and like I said, they've been planning it. Joan had spent all of her time trying to convince Goldine that Peter was a terrible person. There's no accounts that he was. This is just what Joan is saying, okay? That he was abusive, that he was into drugs, that he was mean to Betty, that he was mean to Judy, that he was mean to his employees. And she was really building him up to be this super villain that nobody could get away from. And the only way to save all of these people was to kill him. Goldine said they deliberated over the method for a while. So they start planning this in July.
So Goldie's not reading between the lines here.
Goldine seems all in.
She's going after another woman. She's going to leave her.
Oh, you're talking about what Joan's doing?
Yeah.
Well, yeah. So first they debate poison. Which in July, I imagine Joan was still in the fold. She probably was still in the house. So poison probably seemed like a reasonable method. I thought you were going to talk about like, the summer is a better season for poison. Yeah. No, I've read that. Yeah, that's true. The heat and the poison really interact. And then they thought, well, maybe we'll stab him. And then they they went with gun, and they were like, no, that's the best one. And Goldine talked to a friend of hers and told him that she needed the gun for protection, and what would he recommend? Shoot somebody who'd come into her home. And so he gave her his recommendations. Joan gave her the money. Goldine went to Pasadena,
which is also in the valley,
and bought the gun. And then it was Joan's idea to have this happen on Halloween night because she thought it would be easy to blend in among all the costumes.
Like the chaos and stuff like that.
However, if you're the only trick-or-treater out on the street, I don't know if you're blending in, but whatever.
Also, it wasn't really a costume.
It wasn't.
I mean, you put a bandit mask on.
Yeah, it wasn't great. And a week before the murder, they borrow Margaret's car again, and they drive around the Fabiano neighborhood so that Goldine can actually see where the house is and who Peter is. She has never even seen this man. So on Halloween, Joan goes to Goldine's house. She brings the costume. She puts her in it. I think she had a lot of makeup on too. So I don't know if it was like actual makeup or if it was white face or green face, like monster makeup. Goldine takes the gun. She only brought 2 bullets. I didn't realize you could buy single bullets. I thought they came in a box, but
I have no idea.
Goldine only bought 2 bullets, and she puts it in a paper sack, like a trick or treat, like she's collecting candy. So the gun's in there.
Oh, that's smart.
Don't compliment them.
I mean, it would be better if it was like in a plastic pumpkin, because I feel like paper bags are not very reliable. You could break through.
It'd be better if there was no gun in it at all. You're missing the point.
That's right, but we're already here.
Okay. So they drive to Sun Valley hours before the time of the murder, and they just sit there waiting for the lights to go out. Oh my gosh. Can you imagine the conversation in the car?
You'd be so nervous.
What do you talk about? Yeah, because Goldine's not into this.
No, it's probably pure silent and the radio's on.
Gosh, and the songs that are playing are probably burned in her memory, and every time she hears them, she feels bad for the rest of her life.
Or radio play.
What's radio play?
It's when, back in the day, even when I was a kid, they would do plays on the radio. Like they would read out stories and have actors act the parts out, and there would be a station that you could tune in to listen to that. We grew up listening to those.
But the songs that would have been playing on Halloween night are like
Brown Eyed Girl.
Was Monster Mash out yet?
Oh, on Halloween night.
Right?
That's
they
a good
always
question.
play different songs. It's not normal music.
It was a monster mash.
Yeah. They did the mash. Yeah.
It was a graveyard smash. Okay, stop.
Nailed it. Yeah, I just can't, like, Goldine must be sitting there thinking, like, she must have had moments of, should I just leave?
Panic.
Should I just get out of the car and blend in with the rest?
Like, she seems like a nervous person.
Very nervous.
I wonder, so I think it was either pure silence or she was talking the entire time and her tempo was very fast.
So anyway, Goldine still goes through with it. She walks up after the lights are out. The house is dark. She walks up to the Fabiano's door. She knocks. Peter comes to it. She also reports that he yelled something along the lines of, it's a little bit late for this. She tries to disguise her voice, which is why Betty wasn't sure what she heard.
Right.
She tried to make it deeper.
Yeah.
And she said no.
No.
And she was shaking so badly that she had to use both hands to pull the trigger through the paper bag that she had.
Wow. Oh, so she couldn't have used the plastic pumpkin because she needed to use the paper
Two
bag.
hands. One single shot right through the chest. This is a Marine who survived World War II.
Yeah, it's pretty terrible.
And to die in your own home, in your front door, thinking you're handing out candy to a trick-or-treater.
It's terrible.
So she runs immediately, hops in the car. Joan kisses her, says thank you, and they speed away.
Thanks, babe.
Yeah, I think when she said they didn't describe the kiss, I'm guessing it was a romantic one. But I mean, you could kiss somebody on the cheek, I guess, but she did murder somebody for you.
Let's just dive into. There are a couple.
They've got to be, right?
There are a couple.
They've got to be.
Why would Goldine do this otherwise?
Yeah, that's what I'm
she
saying.
She loves Joan.
You're saying you wouldn't kill for me, Alana?
Oh, I might.
We don't know.
But I wouldn't kiss you.
Not even on the cheek?
Oh, I would.
See, I've painted an alternate scenario here. Anyway, they speed away, which is what the teenage boy, who was not super helpful, saw. And they get back to Hollywood. which is about 13 miles from Sun Valley.
Yeah.
Just so you know, those so there's still some mileage unaccounted for in those 37. Maybe it was just them roaming the neighborhood.
Right. Or like
during that time.
Yeah, I was thinking of that. And I mean, but there wouldn't be a lot of traffic midnight going down from the valley to Hollywood either, so it'd be pretty fast.
Well, how fast you go doesn't change the mileage.
No, I know, but there won't be traffic, which is nice.
Yeah, I'm sure. That's so nice for them. Oh, they just murdered a man and they're coming home. Oh, at least they didn't hit traffic. Okay, now. Anyway, they get back to Hollywood. They burn the clothes that they're wearing. They say they burn the clothes. I don't know why Joan had to burn her clothes, but whatever. There's a bonfire of some sort of wardrobe.
Everybody's naked.
Everybody's naked. And then they just park the car at Margaret's and they walk back. And as Joan's leaving, she looks at Goldine and she says, "Forget you ever knew me." And then they just part.
That's terrible. Poor Goldine.
Yeah, so that's what I'm saying. If they were a couple, that's a tough breakup.
Joan is a heartless, you know what.
Yeah. Goldine goes back to her apartment and she realizes that Joan never took the gun and she doesn't know what to do with it. So she goes to the department store. She puts it in the locker. Not great.
It just sucks because she's going to be the one in trouble for it because she murdered.
Well,
which is, of course, her fault and it's bad. But it's not fair that, I don't know, I feel like Joan needs to be punished as well.
Well, she had ample time to turn left on this. She didn't have to see it through.
No, I agree. She definitely messed up and you shouldn't murder people because your lover tells you to.
Agreed.
Say no.
The investigators start diving into this relationship because it seems that Joan has this just unbelievable hold over Goldine, right?
Yeah.
Like you said, who would do this and why? And they think what happened is that they were friends before. They met at a party where Joan was taking pictures of the guests. And Goldine had actually been married before, but she was divorced. And she really hit it off with Joan because they talked about art and music and writing.
Yeah.
And they would get coffee pretty regularly and just chat.
Mm-hmm.
Then in July of 1957, they started talking about Peter. And that year, like I think maybe Joan had been planning this for a while. That year, Joan started calling Goldine a lot more and started like bringing her in to her fold.
She was just using her from the start.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure.
That's not okay. Also not okay to murder still.
Also, and she just kept talking about how awful Peter was and how poor Betty, and she was mean to Joan and she was mean to Judy. Betty. Obsessed. And Goldine told the Valley Times, and this is a quote from her, "I'll do anything for a friend. Joan told me that he was an evil man and that he was mean to his wife, that he'd threatened Joan. I was so worried about her."
I don't believe it.
I know. I don't believe Joan. But I think Goldine thought that. And Goldine is super remorseful. She kept stating over and over again, "I should have gone to the police. I should have gone to the police." She feels awful, but also it's because she's been caught, right? And she says again in the Valley Times, "I didn't know what kind of woman she really is. I didn't know how cold she was until today." She's talking about Joan.
Yeah.
"I never wanted to hurt anyone. I quit my job as a lab technician because I couldn't prick people's fingers. I've always led a quiet, decent life. What will my friends think? I just wanted to help."
Jeez.
Yeah, so after the arrest, the police come to Betty and tell her who they have and what had happened. And Betty does an interview with the newspaper, and she remembers that she had actually spoken to Goldine one time, I'm guessing over the phone. I'm guessing through Joan, that they had probably been together or when she was living with Joan. And Goldine had called, and Goldine had told her that she couldn't wait to meet Betty. Guessing it was one of those, "Oh, I've heard a lot about you.
Yeah.
We're both good friends with Joan. I can't wait to meet you." And Joan goes into the fact that her and Peter had been in a really big fight over her friendship with Joan. And she said the couple actually separated because of this friendship. But they call it a friendship.
Quote, friendship. Well, they're not going to label in the 50s.
I mean, if Brad came to me today and was like, either get out of the house or stop talking to Alana, I think I'd be like, all right, I'm leaving.
Aww.
Well, that's just rude. Like, that's an ultimatum that doesn't need to happen.
It's controlling behavior, and that's a form of abuse, and that's not okay. Which would set red flags for this is not an okay relationship generally.
Yeah, so, but hindsight is 2020.
Yep,
maybe
sure is.
if Brad thought that you were a murdering
evil
person, he might say, "Hey, I don't want her in my life. And maybe that's what was going on.
But you would have a better conversation about it. Like why I think this and stuff like that. But so it seems like Peter just didn't go about it in the right way.
Well, also, it's possible Betty was having an affair with Joan.
Right.
In which case...
Which is what I think, because Joan is going to crazy lengths right now.
Yeah, that's the only thing that makes sense. Everybody's extreme here. Like Peter's extreme in saying you can never talk to her again. That makes sense if his wife's lover. Sure, let's cut her out of the picture if you want this to work. That's fair. But if it's just truly her friend that she talks to at the beauty salon, seems extreme. Anyway, and Betty says that Peter was the one who really saw Joan's true colors. And she said, I quote, "Joan is cold, cruel, and inhuman with no heart. Even now, I am sure she has no regret." Yikes. So because of this, Svengali hold that Joan had over Golding, she tries to plead insanity. Golding does. It doesn't really work out for her. So then she tries to plead innocent because she is such a mess. She just sobs through everything. Like she can't. No. The defense is like, nobody's going to convict this poor person. She's just like, everybody feels sorry for her, even though she's the murderer and she admits that she's the murderer. She's such a sympathetic character. Joan is not a sympathetic character. And Joan also pleads not guilty. But Joan just sits there either stone-faced or smiling.
And we know that's not good for women, as seen in episode, that lady.
Yeah, that lady. Oh, that's a good one. Oh, I love that lady. But I think Joan, to me, seems real sinister, too. Like, she seems like...
She's terrible.
Yeah, she's not great. It's not going great for them. They have a lot of evidence. So both Golding and Joan plead guilty to second-degree murder and work out a plea bargain. Now, from that, the women are sentenced... I've never heard this sentence before. They're sentenced to 5 years to life.
That's really big range.
Yeah, I've never heard such a wide range. And this case is used often, cited as an example of how the courts were more lenient with female criminals.
Yep, throwback.
Yeah, I mean, because Golding's crying all over the place, and they're like, 5 years seems sufficient.
Pulling stuff out of her muff.
Yeah, careful. She should have put it in a muff. That works every time, 100% of the time. The gun in the muff is successful.
Hard to get it out sometimes.
Yeah, well, yeah. Well, also, it's warm in LA, so she didn't need it. Now, nobody knows how much time either one of these women served. Eventually, they got out on parole.
Wait. We're not talking about the 1600s here. This is the 1950s. We don't have records of this? Ridiculous.
Well, I don't have records of it. I'm sure somebody does, but...
The old warden, call him up.
It's in zero of the sources that I saw. I know. I looked at all the newspapers. I actually paid for a special subscription to all the newspapers in Los Angeles, and I could not find it.
You let her down, newspapers.
But Golding died in Los Angeles in 1998.
We were alive.
Betty sold the hair salons in 1966 and was thought to have remarried.
I was wondering about that. I was like, do they still exist?
No, she said it was, I mean, they might, but they're not owned by the family anymore. She said it was never her dream to have businesses, but that had always been Peter's dream to own his own business. And
it was probably just a painful reminder.
Yeah, and it didn't sound like she was as into it, but yeah. And she passed away in 1999. Wow. Now, nobody knows what happened to Joan. There is zero information on her. I did some serious digging. And I found some interesting things.
Ooh.
I found an obituary from 1999 about a man who, get this, immigrated from Lithuania, grew up in Philadelphia, and then moved to Los Angeles. And he only has one surviving sibling of his 8 original, and her name is Joan Rabel. That's got to be her, right?
Dude, that's absolutely her.
Yeah. So she was still alive in 1999.
Dude, you're a sleuth.
And she apparently is one of 8 who immigrated from Lithuania and then went to Philadelphia. If you believe that. And I also found an obituary for a woman of the same name in 2012 in Los Angeles. And it had, the reason I suspect it may be her is because it had 0 details. It just said her name, that she died, and where she was buried, which I feel might be an appropriate obituary for a woman who was convicted of murder and doesn't have any family left.
2012, that was only 10 years ago.
It might not be her. It's not. I mean, there could obviously be others, but she was still alive in 1999. If you believe that that's her from that obituary, she was the one survivor of the 8.
I think that's absolutely her. The evidence is piled up there.
Yeah. Well, I there's no sources that say that. That's literally just me getting a subscription to newspapers.com and really doing a lot of searching.
Detectives, hire this lady. You're missing out. So
what do you think? What do you think happened here?
I think everybody was lovers with somebody.
Everybody, even Peter? Because we haven't even thought about Peter.
Peter's a lover with Betty.
He's a lover with Betty.
Peter and Betty.
Yep.
Betty and Joan.
Yep.
Joan and Goldine.
Yep.
But Joan and Goldine was just a friendship of utility. Well, a romance. And she was just using her as a weapon, a tool.
Yeah.
I think it's all passion.
I definitely think Joan and Goldine were in a relationship. I don't know if Betty and Joan were in a relationship. I believe Betty...
I'm sure of it.
I believe Joan was in love with Betty. I just don't know if Betty felt the same way at any point.
There must have been a moment.
But she could have just thought they were good friends.
You don't just do that. You don't just murder just as like, oh, I like her. But we've never explored this side of us.
No, yes, you do. Are you kidding me? People murder all the time because they think that they're in love with somebody or that person's in love with them and that person has never once felt that way.
I don't know. She moved in with her.
I know.
You're not saying some late nights wine by the fire? Come on.
Good Lord. I mean, whatever. What makes me feel like it might be more...
Got you flustered.
You did. I didn't even know what to say. I was just thinking of the times that we've been alone by the fire. I was thinking of Peter. The fact that Peter banished Joan from the home and fired her and said you're never to talk to her again or of her again. That's what makes me think like maybe something happened.
Yeah. And he was threatened by her.
But then that means Peter would have known about it.
Maybe. I don't know.
Maybe Betty came clean?
Yeah, maybe.
I don't know. It doesn't matter. But then there's another scenario that says, was Betty involved in asking Joan to do this? I don't love that theory, but I'm throwing it out there. And like the lights going off were a signal that Peter was in bed and that's what Joan was watching for.
I mean, but you turn off the lights to go to bed.
But I'm saying that Joan specifically sat in the car with Goldine waiting for that to happen. Like that was almost like that was the signal.
Yeah, I don't think that's strong though.
I know. I don't think Betty seemed absolutely devastated. And her and Joan were not in contact at any point that we could find after this. So I don't think Betty was involved at all. I really think that I think Betty cutting Joan off is what happened. Now, what do you think if somebody else had come to the door? What would have happened? Do you think Goldine would have even had the wits to like not to just run away? What if Judy had answered the door?
I think she would have run away. She would have like dropped the paper bag, tripped down the stairs back to the sidewalk, and then scrambled back into the car because she's a mess.
That was so specific.
She's like Sophie incarnate, your cat.
Excuse me, my cat is not a murderer.
I know, but she's a little bit of a frantic mess. She has
some nerve issues, yeah. Yeah, poor Peter. He was only 35 years old.
Yeah, that's fucked. I mean, it's not bad.
No, that made it better. Thanks. And poor Betty. Poor Goldine in a way.
Yeah, and poor Judy too.
Yeah, poor Judy. Well, that is the trick-or-treat murder.
Wow.
It's just, I think because it was 1957, if there were relationships going on between the women, the paper was not going to talk about it. It's like when they wouldn't say the word pregnant. So it's the same thing. They wouldn't say they wouldn't say the word lesbian or whatever. So we don't know, and we're never going to know because everybody who does know is no longer with us.
Well, Judy is probably still alive.
I doubt Judy knows, but maybe. But Judy should just keep that secret to herself. She doesn't need to talk about it.
Judy, live your life. Hope things are going well for you.
Yeah, so that's a trick-or-treat murder and all the facts I know about the Valley. I hope I don't know how Italians felt in World War II, but I would have anticipated that I did. Or, well, both, right?
Yeah, sure.
Both. Italian Americans or Italians.
Oh my God. Leonardo's on the other side of this.
I know. Okay, Peter could have fought her son.
Yes.
I know. I thought about that too. And he's protected by soap. So maybe he should have got a bar or two.
Stop it right now.
Just saying.
I never want to use crunchy again.
I know, it freaks me out when the crimes intersect. Like,
yeah, it's cool.
Peter and Leonardo's son could have been
both
in the same
war
space.
On opposing sides. Yeah.
Yes. Scary. But there you go. All right. What are your last words for us?
I have 2. Well, I have more than 2 words.
2.
But I have 2.
I have 2. Good night.
1, if there is unrequited love, instead of arranging a murder, go walk on the beach. Sit in the sand. No, hear me out. You're in LA. Go to Santa Monica, Station 26.
It's too far. They're in the valley.
Yeah, but
the 405 is so busy.
Great SNL skit.
It is.
Just go to the beach, sit in the sand, watch the waves come in, watch a sunset, and just realize that there's so many fish in the sea, and just let that go. Let the murder go.
Your advice kills me. Your advice always reminds me of people who are trying to give diet advice, and they're like, if you're hungry, just drink a glass of water. And it's like, I'm sorry, have you ever had food? No, water doesn't cut it. Like that, I feel like
flavored gum does, though. Anyways.
No, it doesn't.
I
feel like that's your advice. Like, Joan is homicidal. And you're like, just go sit by the waves, Joan.
It helps.
Wash over you.
It's very good for mental health. Anyways, second, if someone you love is encouraging you to commit violence, pause and say, should I really do this? Like, is this worth it? Because again,
and the answer is
sit by the ocean.
Almost always no.
Oh, yeah, that. But the ocean could also help there.
Okay, so we just went over that the Valley and Santa Monica are too far apart. So you could go to the observatory.
No, but you could go on the weekends early in the morning. There's not as much traffic.
That's true. You could also go for a nice hike. There's a lot of canyons in the valley.
Oh, yeah. Go for a hike, get the sweat on, and just breathe in the mountain air and just realize this is what it means to be alive.
Exercise instead of murder. You heard it here, folks. Alon is a personal trainer. All right. Well, you can find us on Facebook. You can find us on Instagram at
Tea Time Crimes.
You can find us on Facebook. I already said that. You can email us at
teatimecrimes@gmail.com. We'd love to hear from you.
Yes, we would. And rate, review, listen, do your thing wherever you get your podcasts. And we will be back with our last spooky episode next week.
Spooky.
And I am scared of it.
You can't do this to me.
I have to.
No, you don't.
There's no violence.
There's no violence, but there's going to be creepy stuff.
It's scary.
Next week, I'm going to be sleeping alone.
It's the last one before Halloween. It's just very timely, okay?
Oh, man.
You'll be fine.
No,
I believe in you.
You're going to
just go for a hike.
You're going to have to be on FaceTime with me when I go to sleep that night.
That's fine. I'll do that. I'll stay on FaceTime with you the whole night. Okay. All right, cool. We're out. See you next week. Thank you for listening. Bye.
Bye.